Hey there, and welcome to your deep dive. So, you're interested in store detectives, huh?
A fascinating career choice, for sure.
It is. We're going to dig into what it really takes to excel in this line of work using this super interesting career guide from RoleCatcher.
They've got thousands of these guides
Uh,
for all sorts of careers.
Right. It's amazing. Plus, they've got all these cool AI tools to help with your job search. But let's get back to those store detectives.
Yeah, it's not your typical security guard gig. It's way more than just standing around.
So true. This role catcher guide describes store detectives as this cool blend of investigator, like a detective,
Right.
mixed with security expert and even a bit of customer service.
Yeah, you have to blend in, read people.
Totally. And get this, the job market for this, surprisingly competitive.
Well, when you think about it, retail theft is a huge problem.
Multi-billion dollar problem, right?
Exactly. And that shrinkage they talk about, that's the loss retailers face from theft.
Yeah.
It impacts everything. Prices go up, store policies get stricter.
It's like a ripple effect, huh?
Exactly. A good store detective can really make a difference to a business's bottom line.
That's a great point. I never thought about it that way. So it's more than just catching shoplifters red-handed. It's about preventing that loss in the first place.
Exactly.
So how do they actually do it? What tools are we talking about besides the obvious, like security cameras?
Well, you've got your classic CCTV cameras, obviously, but they're pretty high-tech these days. And then there are the security tags you see on clothes.
Oh, those things. I've always wondered how those work.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty of that later, but it's actually pretty fascinating technology.
Cool. But it's not all gadgets and gizmos, right? The guide emphasizes the importance of, like, continuous learning.
Absolutely. Technology is always changing, so store detectives need to stay ahead of the game.
Right, because the criminals are getting smarter too, I bet.
Exactly. And it's not just about the tech, either. The guide even mentions needing to understand, like, criminal law.
Whoa, really? So it's serious business.
Oh, absolutely. Knowing how to properly apprehend a suspect, gathering evidence, it's all crucial.
To protect everyone involved, right?
Exactly. You got to minimize risks and make sure everyone's rights are respected.
That's a side of the job I never really considered. The legal stuff. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, there are a lot of different aspects to this job.
Speaking of different aspects, I thought it was really interesting how the role catcher guide breaks down the career path into stages, from entry level all the way to like senior positions.
It's a good way to visualize your career progression, right?
Yeah, totally. What stood out to you from those examples?
Honestly. The amount of data analysis involved, at the senior level at least.
Really?
Yeah? Senior store detectives might be analyzing trends, identifying patterns. It's like detective work, but with data.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Like in those crime shows where they have those big boards with all the photos and connections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that analytical skill set, it's becoming more and more important in all sorts of security roles, not just store detectives.
Makes sense. So it's not just about reacting to what's happening right now, it's about predicting what might happen in the future.
Exactly. You have to be proactive.
That's actually really interesting. But, before someone can even become a store detective and start analyzing data like a pro, they have to actually get hired.
Oh, right. And that's a whole other challenge these days.
Totally. I mean, a role catcher even mentions on their website how tough it can be to stand out to an AI recruiter in today's job market.
Yeah, those applicant tracking systems can be brutal. Like your resume is getting scanned by a robot.
It's kind of scary, honestly. Like, how do you even get your application seen by a real person these days?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's all about keywords, formatting.
So you're telling me I need to learn to speak robot now?
Well, luckily there are tools to help with that. And RoleCatcher, they've actually got some cool AI tools for that too.
Oh, right. They've got that whole system for crafting resumes and cover letters that are tailored to specific jobs.
Exactly. They even help you practice for interviews with AI-powered feedback.
Wow, it's amazing how technology is changing everything.
It's a double-edged sword, that's for sure. It can be a challenge, but it also creates opportunities.
True, true. So for someone who's listening to this and thinking, hey, a store detective, that sounds like a pretty cool gig, what's the main takeaway here?
I'd say it's a role with real responsibility. It's more than just a job. It's a career. You need a unique blend of skills.
Yeah. You need observation skills,
Mhm.
intuition, legal knowledge.
Right, and the ability to work independently and as part of a team. It's definitely not your average security guard gig.
No kidding. It's starting to sound more like a detective novel than a day job. Okay, so we've covered the basics of what a store detective does, the job market, and even how AI plays a role.
Right, we've barely scratched the surface.
Exactly. So where do we go from here? What else can you tell us about the tools and techniques store detectives use? I'm ready to channel my inner Sherlock Holmes.
Well, buckle up because we're about to get into the nitty-gritty of surveillance, psychology, and the constantly evolving world of retail security.
Okay, so we're ready to delve deeper into the world of store detectives. Where do we start?
Let's talk about those eyes in the sky. You know, the CCTV systems.
Yeah, those are everywhere these days.
Exactly. But they're not what they used to be. Today's systems, super advanced. We're talking high-definition cameras, facial recognition software, even AI-powered analytics that can flag suspicious behavior, like as it's happening.
Whoa, seriously. So it's not just some guy watching a wall of monitors anymore.
Nope, not at all. Store detectives might be using these systems to track a suspect's movements. You know, like see where they go in the store,
Yeah.
if they meet up with anyone.
Oh, like accomplices.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Or even predict where a theft might happen before it even goes down, based on, historical data and all that.
That's wild. It's like something out of Minority Report, predicting crimes before they occur.
Right. Technology is amazing. And speaking of amazing technology, let's talk about those security tags.
Oh, yeah. Those things. I've always wondered how those actually work.
Right. It's actually pretty cool. So most of them use this tech called RFID, radio frequency identification.
Catchy.
Right. So basically, the tag has this little microchip that emits a radio signal. When you buy something, the cashier, they deactivate the tag. But if someone tries to walk out with it still active,
Alarm bells.
bingo, alarm bells at all the exits.
Clever. But what about those stories you hear about shoplifters, like using magnets or something to beat the system?
Ah, yes, the age-old battle of wits. Shoplifters are always coming up with new tricks. They try magnets, homemade gadgets, even lining their bags with foil to block those radio signals.
It's like a constant arms race. So, how do store detectives stay one step ahead?
Vigilance, my friend. Knowledge. You got to adapt.
So, always be learning.
Always. They have specialized training on all the latest shoplifting techniques, how to spot the signs of tampering.
Tampering with the tags, you mean?
Yep. And they work closely with store staff. Make sure those security measures are buttoned up tight.
It's a team effort.
Always is.
The guide also mentioned something about being able to, like, spot a shoplifter just by how they're acting, like their body language.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can tell a lot about someone just by observing them.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, for example, someone who's overly nervous, jumpy, avoiding eye contact. Maybe they keep looking around like they're expecting someone to jump out at them.
Okay, so the shifty eyes thing, that's legit.
Uh-huh, sometimes. They might also check for unusual bulges in clothes or bags. Someone who keeps coming in and out of the store,
Like they're casing the joint?
maybe. Or someone who seems way too interested in a particular section or display, like they're memorizing the layout or something.
Wow, you've got to be like a human surveillance camera.
Pretty much.
I-
And it's not just about spotting individuals either. It's about understanding how groups work together, especially with organized retail crime.
Organized crime, like gangs and stuff.
Well, not necessarily gangs, but definitely organized groups. They'll have lookouts, distractions, carefully planned escape routes, the whole 9 yards.
Whoa, that's intense. So how do you even begin to tackle something like that?
Coordination. Store detectives need to be able to recognize those patterns and then work with store security, law enforcement. It's a team effort, but they're often the ones connecting the dots.
That's some next level detective work. And speaking of knowledge, the guide also mentioned criminal psychology. What's that all about?
It's about understanding why people do what they do. In this case, why people shoplift.
So it's not just about catching them, it's about understanding what leads them to that point.
Exactly. What factors might influence their decision-making? Are they desperate? Is it a thrill thing? By understanding those motivations, store detectives can be more effective in preventing crime.
So it's not just about being reactive, it's about getting ahead of the problem.
Exactly. It might mean working with management to improve security, maybe collaborating with local law enforcement to share intel on crime patterns, or even advocating for programs that address the root causes of things like shoplifting, like poverty or addiction.
Wow, I had no idea. It was so multifaceted.
It really is. It's a deep dive into security, psychology, even sociology, when you think about
No
it.
kidding. It's like being a detective, a security expert, and a social worker all rolled into one.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And as the retail landscape keeps evolving, so too will the role of the store detective.
What do you mean? How is it evolving?
Well, think about it. Online shopping, for
That's
one.
true. That's huge now.
Exactly. And a lot of those purchases end up being picked up in store. So that creates new opportunities for fraud.
Oh, right. Like someone could be pretending to be someone else to pick up an order.
Exactly. Store detectives might need to verify identities,
Yeah.
watch out for fraudulent transactions.
Work with those online platforms like Amazon or whoever,
Right. It's not just about what happens inside the store anymore. It's about that whole customer journey.
online and offline.
Exactly. And then you've got things like self-checkout kiosks,
Oh, yeah. Those are everywhere now. So convenient, but
but they're also a prime target for what's called sweethearting. Basically, when someone intentionally underrings items or scans cheaper things than what they're actually taking.
wow, I had no idea there was a word for that.
Oh, there's a word for everything in retail security.
I bet. So with all these new challenges popping up, how are store detectives keeping up?
They're using a combination of, well, everything. Technology, their training, good old-fashioned observation skills. They might use video analytics to monitor those self-checkout kiosks. They might work with loss prevention teams to, analyze all that transaction data and look for suspicious patterns.
Bid analysis strikes again.
Always. And of course, they're educating store staff and even customers on how to prevent these types of crimes.
It's a team effort for sure. It sounds like this is a field where you constantly need to be learning.
Absolutely. The retail world is always changing, and store detectives need to change right along with it. That's why it's so important to keep learning, go to conferences, stay on top of all the latest trends.
And that's something RoleCatcher really emphasizes in their guide, right? They've got all those resources for career development, the skills assessments, training programs.
They even have a whole network of mentors.
Wow, it's like they've got your back every step of the way.
Exactly. And that's really valuable in such a demanding field.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking all about store detectives, the skills, the tech, even a little bit of psychology.
It's a role that really brings together so many different elements.
It is. But before we wrap up this deep dive, we have to talk about the ethical side of things, right?
Absolutely. Because with any kind of security role, especially one that involves, potentially apprehending someone, there are a lot of ethical considerations.
Right, because it's not just about catching someone in the act, it's about doing it the right way, respecting people's rights, upholding the law, all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest issues, of course, is racial profiling.
Right, that's a huge concern. You can't just target someone based on their race or how they look.
Exactly. Store detectives need to be so aware of their own biases. They have to treat everyone fairly and equally.
Because suspicion should be based on actual evidence, right? Like what you observe someone doing.
Exactly. You can't go on a hunch or a stereotype.
Yeah.
A- And when it comes to actually apprehending a suspect, if it comes to that,
Yeah.
using the minimum force necessary, that's crucial.
Because you don't want a shoplifting incident to turn into something more serious.
Exactly. Safety is paramount for everyone involved. And even after a suspect is apprehended, there are procedures to follow.
Like what? Give me the rundown.
Well, reading them their rights.
Miranda rights, the whole 9 yards.
Right. Contacting law enforcement, making sure any evidence is handled properly. There's a process.
Because if you mess up any of that, there could be legal consequences.
Exactly. You could jeopardize the whole case. So it's about understanding the boundaries, knowing what you can and cannot do.
And that's where training comes in again, right?
All the time. Store detectives, they need to stay up to date on the laws, new regulations.
And RoleCatcher, they have resources for that too, don't they?
They do. Industry news, legal updates, even online training programs.
It's like they've got it all covered. So we've talked about the importance of ethics, but what about the future of this field? With all the technology out there, like facial recognition, AI.
Oh, it's changing everything. It's already changing everything.
Right, like are robots going to replace store detectives altogether?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's a valid one.
Mm.
But while some tasks might become automated, I don't think the human element is going away anytime soon.
Because a robot can't, like, read a situation the way a human can, right?
Exactly. Intuition, judgment, empathy, those are things that are still uniquely human. A robot might be able to spot someone acting suspiciously, but can it tell if they're just nervous, lost, or if they actually have bad intentions? Probably not.
So it's about finding that balance, using technology to our advantage, but not relying on it completely.
Exactly. And that means store detectives, they're going to need to be even more adaptable in the future.
What do you mean?
Well, they're going to have to be comfortable working with all this new tech, learning new skills all the time. The world of retail security is changing faster than ever.
So adaptability is key. What else?
Critical thinking skills, Being able to look at a situation, analyze it from different angles.
And make good decisions under pressure, right? Because things can escalate quickly in those situations.
Absolutely. And of course, communication. That never goes out of style, no matter how much tech we have.
Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people.
Always. Building relationships with your team, with store staff, even with customers, that's all part of the job.
Wow, so being a store detective in the future, it's not just about catching shoplifters anymore, is it?
It's about so much more than that. It's about being adaptable, tech savvy, a good communicator, and always thinking ethically.
It's about being a protector, a problem solver, and maybe even a bit of a tech wizard.
Exactly. It's a challenging career path, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about the world of store detectives, from the thrill of the chase to the importance of ethics.
And everything in between.
Exactly. We've talked about the skills, the challenges, the rewards, and of course we couldn't have done it without the incredible insights from RoleCatcher, their career guide, and all those resources. It's an amazing tool for anyone considering this line of work.
Absolutely. A great place to start your research, for sure.
So for anyone out there who's feeling inspired, remember, the world of retail security needs observant, dedicated individuals like you.
It's a career where you can truly make a difference.
Absolutely. And until next time, stay curious, everyone.